Hi, welcome back to the podcast. We're here with Francisca Lopez.
Manuel Trujillo, and Francesca.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, thank you.
Okay, so I have a series of questions that I would like to ask you. Um, if you have anything to add at any moment, you can. So we can start with what is your CDG? What CDG did you choose?
We're doing reducing inequalities.
And why do you join that CDG?
I joined reducing inequalities because in Colombia there are a lot of different types of inequalities, and I thought it would be interesting to do something different and something that hasn't been done in school and that can address a problem that is maybe not talked about that much, but is like a big inequality in the country or in the city.
So I'm a part of the Reducing Inequalities Impact Group, which seeks to reduce all sorts of inequalities in the world. And I personally chose it because I think inequalities, be they monetary, gender-wise, all inequalities that our world faces are the cause of a lot of the issues in our world. So I think reducing these would be a great help to the world.
So our SDG is reducing inequalities. I chose to join this SDG because I have noticed there are many inequalities in Colombia and in the world. And I feel like we should help fight these inequalities in order to have a better tomorrow.
Okay, so you're talking about these inequalities. What specific inequality did you choose? What's your impact project?
So we decided to do menstrual cups specifically, but the inequality that we focused on is access to feminine hygiene products, and specifically we wanted to focus on women's prisons because we found an article that talks about women not having access to these basic products. So we decided that this was like an inequality that was both in like the healthcare system and also like gender inequalities.
We're trying to donate at least 100 menstrual cups to these women since they help the environment, and they also are they help them monetarily since they don't have as much money going back into the real world. Having to only care about one feminine hygiene product instead of having to buy these every month would be a great help for them.
Okay, and how do you come about like approaching specifically the female sanitation in prisons in Colombia?
I think we were like at first we just wanted to do some research on like what inequalities there were, and we realized that like female sanitation was an inequality that was very like big in Colombia, but we decided to focus on prisons based on like the article that I already mentioned. But specifically, we looked at like different communities that we could have helped, and like we had a lot of options. We considered doing schools or like centers of victims of violence and also prisons, but we decided prisons because I feel like they're a group that like don't get really talked about or don't receive a lot of attention, and specifically like from the government they don't receive a lot of help, or like also there's not a lot of social service projects that actually focus on helping women in prisons. And we decided that it was a community that was like easy to help because they're like there's a specific number of women in prisons, and it made the project also more feasible.
So right now we have contacted a provider, which we have gotten a really good deal to get these cups at manufacturer price and not having to pay any profits to a company that's going to sell these normally. And we've also talked to a community, and we're trying to get this checked out about how many women we could possibly help. We're also waiting for the school to confirm how much money they can supply to us to see if we can go fundraising and see the next steps we have to take.
Okay, so this is the inequality you will be tackling. What are you gonna do in the project? Like, what's your action plan now?
Okay, so the project was to give these women in prisons menstrual cups so that they can like have one product that can last like 10 years, so they don't have to like buy or receive like that many female sanitation projects, and it could products, I mean, and it could also help like with the environment. But we like after talking to the Fundación Acción Interna, we realized that we couldn't help women in prisons directly because of the restrictions that IMPEC places on like what can enter women's prisons. But we realized that we could help women that are like in halfway homes after they leave the prison. And like the project, like at this point, what we want to do is gather money so that we can buy menstrual cups and give them to the women in this house. And there are 300 women, and we don't have like the money yet, but we're like figuring out different ways to obtain the money, whether it's like from the social service office or like from companies that can sponsor our project.
Okay, thank you. And well, the last question that you kind of already answered is, what do you expect to achieve at the end of the project?
Well, really, we just want to help as many women as possible, and we realize because of time restrictions that we might not be able to help like the 300 women that are in the house, but we want to buy as many menstrual cups as possible with the money that we obtain. So obviously, if we obtain a lot, we are going to buy as many as we can to help the 300 women, but even if we don't get the money needed, we want to be able to like start the project so that maybe groups in the future, like next year, can continue with the project, gain more money, and help the rest of the women that we don't help this year.
Okay, thank you. And the last question, is there any way us, the podcast organization, or our listeners could help with your project?
Well, I think the money issue is like the biggest one we have right now because the social service office can't give us that much money. So if anyone listening has like a company or like contacts that can help sponsor the project, that would be great because it would be like very beneficial if we could obtain more money and help all of the women in the house.
Okay, thank you, Francisca.
Thank you.